absolutely freaking nuts. I mean, look at this. It's incredible. And you know what's really amazing about it is that, well, for me, sure, I know every inch of this ship in the computer realm, but to actually see it in 3 dimensions is like a whole different experience. So thanks, Russ Myers, the maniac. This guy made this in his apartment in Manhattan. The only thing I can say about Russ is that once he starts on something, he's gonna pull it off, and he's not gonna stop. He's not gonna take any prisoners. This is exactly the ship from the show. I had the CG models, and I gave those to Russell Myers, and he printed this out. And yeah, we've got, you know, there's been some nice model kits of it, but we've never seen this before, ever. The great thing about a Starfleet starship is that every real Federation starship has certain things that every fan expects to see there. And if they don't see it, they get a little pissed off. I know, because I get a little pissed off. There's a lot of P-38 in here. P-38 Lightning from World War II. It was a twin-boom fighter plane, 2 engines, fast. This is all it's P-38 stuff. And if you look at the top of the fairings here, you see the turbochargers. And look at any picture of a P-38, and you see the superchargers are in exactly the same place as a P-38 Lightning. Engineering is right here. And if you look at the warp core in engineering, you'll see the power transfer conduits going up. Plasma is going up to these turbochargers where they're spun up and fired back, and then up to the warp engines. Look at these engines. Everything that I did on the ship was designed to look like it was a step before the Constitution class, the original series Enterprise. And if you take a look at the engines, you'll see all the plumbing is the same. The design aesthetic and the evolution towards the Constitution class, it's all here. You can see where everything is derived from. You know, the intercoolers, if you look at the details on the intercoolers, it is like the Constitution class. There's more of it, it's heavier duty. You've got it on both sides of the engine. When I did the refit, I got rid of this outside plumbing, covered it over. Now you could have your pennant, and it would be like the original series ship. Now, we've got 4 impulse engines going up, 4 areas with our impulse engines, here, 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 and here. If you were to shave them down to about here and bring them together, they are exactly the impulse engine on the original series Enterprise. When I was a kid, the first car that my parents bought was a 1957 Chevy, which I love that car. If you take a look at these impulse cones, this is exactly the taillight on a 57 Chevy, which is pretty damn cool. It was designed, one of the things, I love cars that had fins on them, and so that's what is going on here. I'm going to talk about some of the little things that some people may not know about. The symmetrical warp field governor, which was named by Mike Okuda, because originally I was pushing for this to be the warp core. I figured, why have it in the body of the ship? We can have it here if we need to get rid of it. It's easy. But they didn't go for that. They wanted to have engineering. They wanted to have the warp core within the ship. Fine. So I'm like, Mike, what are we going to do? You know, it's such an integral part of the design. And he says it's a symmetrical warp field governor. Wait, love it. This area here is the engineering staging area. Our idea was that these engines, you were having to stop and service them after, you know, a couple of warp jumps. It took constant working on to keep them in working order. And what made me think of that was that my uncle was a chief on a submarine during World War II in the Pacific. And he said they had 2 engines on the submarine. One was always in a state of being torn down and put back together. Actually, I love the idea of possibly having 2 warp cores where one warp core you would constantly be taking apart. But the idea was all of this was engineering staging, and that we even had an arm like the International Space Station to operate outside, like the crane really is what it would be. Most people don't realize this is actually a control tower like you'd have at the airport, which is another homage to Matt Jeffries' Aviator. And we have it below as well we've got the pod bay here where we had drop ships, which is unusual for Starship. I love the idea of doing the drop ships. One issue we had is if you have a warp core, and we know what we see in engineering, but it's actually longer than that. It's a longer than it appears on the show. It goes back behind the wall. How do you get rid of it if there's a warp core breach? Well, you could drop it like it's a bomb bay, but there's a lot of stuff happening under there. We have a hangar deck where we launch shuttle pods from, so that's an issue. The idea is that this whole section can either hinge up or blow off, and the warp core would come out this way. This is hinged and can drop down lower so that it's on line with these pylons. Not only can you eject the warp core from here, but imagine that the whole time the NX is out there, back at Starfleet, they're getting real-time information about how the ship is operating and functioning. They're building a new engine room at an orbital dry dock station, an upgrade. And so you can lift all of this up and slide. There's a big tunnel in here, like a subway tunnel. You could slide the entire engineering department out like it works in a drawer and slide in a new one, and you're ready to go again. Scale is very important. People need a sense of scale. We had prominent airlocks on the ship. The airlocks were designed by Michael Kuda. He wanted to design the airlocks, and he based them on the International Space Station airlocks.
Atlantis, Houston, you are go to open the hatch.
They give you a sense of scale. Of course, the bridge being on top of the primary hull, which some people complain about, because it's, they say that you're kind of putting it out there where it's easy to hit. The idea that people can look at it and know that's where our heroes are, and the sense of scale that gives is more important. These grids are actually tracks that a car, like a window washer car and a skyscraper, can travel on. We did a show where we had a mine on the surface of the ship, and they decided to have our poor guys trudging across the entire hull to get to this thing, which makes our people look dumb. Even if they had to come from over here to get to here, there would have been a car that you could take. But, they thought that our heroes walking across the hull seemed more treacherous, so it's all about the drama, folks. The bridge module is not symmetrical, which is, you rarely will see that on any of the starships. It's like they build one side, they flip it. But I wanted to make sure that it was obvious where Archer's ready room was, which is right here. I've given it some relief, and there's his window. Oh yeah, here's another thing. That's the joy of walking around this 3D this physical model, the memories that come back. Originally, I lit this dome up on the bridge, just like the original series. They wouldn't let me do it. What I did was the next best thing, and that was to make it a reflective metal material that almost gave the impression it's a very bright area, maybe it's lit. The other interesting thing is that, engineering is right down here. As a matter of fact, and not too many people know this, but on either side of the bridge, there's two doors on either side of the main viewing screen. If you go out there, there's kind of a gallery, and in the gallery there are two fireman poles that you can slide down, and you're in engineering, basically. Oh, by the way, these are Easter eggs from the original series ship from, say, The Cage and We're No Man, where they had these interesting plates here. I always saw these as hard contact points in dry dock. Oh, and another original series Easter egg is this dish is exactly the Constitution class deflector dish squeezed down to this shape. Now, if you were to take this deflector dish in the computer and stretch it till it was a circle, it would be exactly the original series deflector. The idea is that it's going to evolve into the Constitution class. So, and here's another little tidbit. These armatures here that are used to steer the deflector dish, they are exactly the lens on the lunar lander.
You're a go to continue power defense. Roger.
These doors on the top and the bottom, you can open these doors up on the top and the bottom, and you've got a tunnel. You could literally fly a travel pod straight through there and out the other side. But the idea is that, yes, we have doors in the back, but they're not for cargo. These are cargo doors. If you were to open these doors, you would be able to see the decks. The idea being that cargo pods can be brought in, floated down into the tunnel, and then pushed off onto the deck where there is gravity. One of the things that became a real problem was that everyone is like rushing to get this show ready to go before the camera. And especially the producers who, look, I mean, I'm in the art department, but someone like Rick Berman is dealing with every department. So his time is really at a premium. And sometimes getting answers from the front office was not easy. And one of the times that happened was trying to decide what we wanted to do with phasers, where we were going to put phasers, were there going to be phaser emplacements on the surface, and I could not get an answer. So to protect myself, really, all over the place, we've got hatches on the ship. Underneath it is a cylinder, and the cylinder is like a cylinder on a 6-shooter, where you've got a rotary thing happening here that could turn. Every time you turn it, it could be something else. You could turn it and it could launch a probe. You could turn it and a phaser can come out of there. Anything that you need can come out of these hatches. Now, I remember when Dave Blass brought us in for Star Trek Picard. He said, Doug, I want to get the band back together, which was, I'd never heard that from this, era of Star Trek. It was funny. I remember Dave said, I don't want to have to explain to someone what a warp core egress is. And he's like totally right, because if you don't understand, you miss certain things. The thing you gotta also remember is that I was a Star Trek fan. First run, original series, 12 years old. We'd never seen a spaceship like that before. And the idea of me getting to design an Enterprise is absolutely nuts. And not just this one, but there's the Enterprise J, and of course there was the G from Picard. So it's really not fair. I've had too goddamn much fun. It should not be allowed. It absolutely should be illegal. I'm gonna go turn myself into the police right now.